All right. Hello, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and get started as folks continue to sign on. Uh, Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of the Voices of QLF webinar series. We're excited to have all of you with us here today. I'm particularly excited to welcome our panelists today. Um, it's giving me an opportunity to virtually travel back to the Catalonia region, which, as many of you know, was the site of the second QLF Congress in 2016, which I was very lucky to have been a part of, and to be able to experience the stunning landscapes in that region, and really an opportunity to learn about all of the incredibly impressive work that has gone into protecting those ecosystems. So some of that we will be hearing about today. I just want to add that if anyone has any questions or comments or feedback that they want to share during the episode, you're welcome to contact us at qlf@qlf.org by email, or we do have a chat feature as well that you can add in any comments or questions there, and we'll get back to you after the episode. I think that is it. So I will now introduce our QLF president, Beth Alling. If you would mind turning your camera on, Beth.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for hosting this wonderful webinar series. And now I'd like to ask our panelists to turn on their video and mic. Here we are. Thank you so much. And on this episode, we'll reflect on the innovative initiatives in land stewardship and the development of the Land Stewardship Network in Catalonia, the first in Europe. As such, it is a great pleasure to introduce our distinguished guests, Marta Subirà, Miquel Rafa, Jordi Pietx, who join us from Barcelona, Catalonia, along with QLF staff, Brent Mitchell, Senior Vice President, and Larry Morris, President Emeritus, who joined the webinar from their offices in Massachusetts. Marta is the Secretary of Environment and Sustainability for the Government of Catalonia. Miquel is Director of Territory and Environment at the Catalunya La Pedrera Foundation, where he manages the largest system of private land conservation areas in Catalonia. Jordi is the founder of the Catalan Land Stewardship Network, now the Nature Conservation Network. On a personal note, and picking up from what Alex has just said, I'm deeply grateful to our Catalan guests who gave so much of their time and expertise for the second QLF Congress held in Barcelona in 2016, where we convened 160 alumni and partner organizations representing 38 countries. Thank you, Miquel, for hosting the Congress. Thank you, Marta, for your presentation at the final session of the Congress. And Jordi, I'm grateful for all your time in serving as the architect of the Congress, managing the most complex logistics and plans. And clearly the goodwill of our Catalan guests and their colleagues says everything about a long-term friendship with Brent Mitchell, former staff member Jessica Brown, and Larry Morris, and that is built on decades of a shared conservation ethic and an abiding commitment to the stewardship of natural and cultural heritage. And now Brent Mitchell will provide a brief history and review of QLF and Catalonia.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. We mainly want to hear from Marta, Miquel, and Jordi, but just to give you some context for how the Quebec Labrador Foundation got involved in Catalonia. And there are connections to the last episode of Voices of QLF with Blažena Hušková and Mita Kundrada from the Czech Republic. Miquel participated in one of the first fellowships for young conservation leaders from Europe, coming to New England in 1990. Most of the participants were from Central Europe and the Baltics, but our program sponsor, the German Marshall Fund of the United States, recognized that Spain was still emerging from the suppression of the Franco regime, much as post-Soviet states were recovering from communism. Jessica, that Beth just mentioned, my wife, who used to work for QLF, was primarily responsible for the program, which connected us both to a lifelong friend in Miquel. And we've stayed in touch as all three of us are all active in IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. In 1995, an enthusiastic young man contacted me who wanted to come work with us and learn about land stewardship. He had met Barbara Slaby, a QLF alumna in Scotland, on a program that we helped put together with a Scottish counterpart. It was an unusual request, but I needed help with another fellowship for Latin America and the Caribbean. Jordi came and made himself indispensable, and then volunteered briefly at our local land trust, Essex County Greenbelt. He wrote a paper on how land stewardship might work in Catalonia. At the time, I thought it was an academic exercise until he went home and made it happen. And Jordi reminds me that he got to know Miquel through us, as I suggested they meet. Helping to make Jordi's dream a reality from the government side was Marta's office, especially our dear friend Salvador Grau, who died too young 5 years ago. Marta has continued Salvador's tireless support for protecting Catalonia's natural heritage, seemingly everywhere at once, advocating for green infrastructure and encouraging stewardship. From QLF, we provided a range of exchange opportunities to feed the effort new ideas and inspiration. These were fellowships and study tours to New England, including 2 successive ministers of environment, Marta's bosses, as well as peer exchanges between Catalonia and Central Europe. In 2000, we were invited to a meeting at Castel de Montesquieu, where the Land Stewardship Network was formed. We brought along Ed Becker from our local land trust, as well as experts from the Land Trust Alliance and its Ontario counterpart. In 2008, at the World Conservation Congress in Barcelona, we all advocated for a specialist group on privately protected areas and nature stewardship, which QLF continues to lead within the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas. Our approach in Central Europe was to work across a large geographic region from the Baltics to the Balkans, but in Western Europe we focused on Catalonia with expectations that the movement would grow from there. In 2013, we co-authored a manual in English, Spanish, and Catalan, Caring Together for Nature, Land Stewardship as a Tool to Promote Social Involvement with a Natural Environment in Europe. That work has since grown into the European Land Conservation Network, now under the auspices of the Eurosite organization. For our efforts, we got as much as we gave in terms of ideas and inspiration. A system of social corporate philanthropy created the largest system of private reserves in Catalonia, which Miquel now leads. Land stewardship everywhere unlocks the potential for individuals to participate and contribute, but in Catalonia, it reflects a deep cultural commitment to social betterment as much as it does a desire for conservation. And of course, post-Franco Catalonia reminds us to be vigilant against authoritarianism, whichever lurks in society, waiting for an opportunity to oppress. Beth?
Thank you. So well stated. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Brent. And now let's talk about your QLF experiences. And I'd like to start with Miquel. If you could tell us about your exchange with QLF in 1990 and what that has meant to you personally and professionally.
Well, it's an old history now. It's 30 years ago. I was only 24 years old, and at that time I became the first professional working for an environmental NGO in Catalonia. And the name of the organization is DEPANA, still working and active. And I had the opportunity to participate in this study tour and fellowship program at QLF, thanks to the German Marshall Fund, as Brent said. And wow, that was an eye-opener for me. I learned a lot about how to manage an NGO. I started to know about land stewardship. I first started to be in contact with climate change issues, how to run conservation projects and campaigns. And I was like a sponge, you know. I was having meetings with like donors, like this meeting with I think it's the Rockefeller Fund people and other donors. And many other environmental NGOs and public organizations dealing with nature and environment. And I collect a lot of papers, a lot of information. And actually, I still have what I call a magic box. The magic box full of information and ideas. And from time to time, since 30 years, I've been able to develop some of these ideas in my professional career. And then the personal thing, I contacted QLF, but QLF were Jessica, Brent, Larry, many other people, but especially with them, I developed a long friendship, and especially they became like my professional mentors all of these years, and that was very, very important. In 1998, so 8 years after this study tour, I had the opportunity to create the Land Trust in Catalonia, the foundation. At that time was named Territori and Paisatge, and we had opportunity to buy land and to start this network of privately protected areas, which still is very important, and it provides a lot of opportunities to do work on our side, but also to help others, smaller organizations, to do the job. And well, then we met Jordi, and we together we started this idea of creating a network of land stewardship in our region.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Jordi, could you tell us about your many experiences with QLF, which began 30 years ago?
Yes, because actually 2 years after Miquel had been in the exchange here in New England, I happened to be studying in the UK and was able to volunteer as a translator for an exchange on environmental education, which involved organizations from Scotland. That's where we had the exchange, Catalonia, and Barbara Slaby, who was a member of staff of environmental education at QLF, was also there in that exchange. In conversations that were going during that intensive week of exchange, Barbara told me about something called land stewardship, and I don't know. To me, that was that enlightened me completely, professionally, and from what I wanted to do. I had a background in biology, environmental sciences, but that connection to people and to this idea of taking care of the land that you also use was something like, I have to do something about this. Barbara sent me information, and a couple of years ago, once I had started working as a professional, as a consultant, I decided to send a written letter by post in late '94 to Brent Mitchell, who I knew was the person I should contact to, and that's where we started the idea of joining and coming. And I arrived, and I spent this half year in '95 at QLF. The photo at the right of the image, and yes, I was doing something like an academic exercise, because Brent knows that I was taking as much time from him for organizing and assisting the organization of the fellowship, of the Latin American and Caribbean Fellowship. And the other half of time I was asking him questions. Who can I go and meet? Who is this person? Where can I get most information on this and that? And yeah, it was a very, very intense summer, also together with Jason Miner, who was the main intern organizing that fellowship, and of course with the colleagues from Latin America. Actually, the word we use for land stewardship, custodia del territorio in Catalan, custodia del territorio in Spanish, that was first thought during the Latin American and Caribbean exchange. How we can say that we were discussing with the Latin American fellows, ¿cómo vamos a llamar al land stewardship? And yeah, that's how it happened. And I went back to Logan Airport and back to Catalonia, and I was not feeling like having an academic exercise with me. I was feeling like this is something we must do in Catalonia. And it took some time, of course, and it took the birth of Miquel Rafa Foundation. And as soon as his foundation got started with him and with his previous director, Jordi Pietx, we went there and we said, we must organize a seminar. We must discuss this topic. This has to be an important topic in Catalonia. And in 2000, we organized this seminar in Montesquieu. And a few years later, the network started evolving. I think, yeah, that's the second and last slide. And then eventually, as the network, the XCT network got started, that's when we started to get more in contact and involve the Catalan government, really. First, it was more probably a process and a matter of civil society. But at that point, we knew, and by comparing to New England, the US, and other experiences in other countries, Ontario, for example, etc., we knew that it was very important to get the government in there. And yes, in 2005, in the winter of 2005, we organized this week-long exchange. One of the participants that you see in the center of the photograph with a bright face is Salvador Grau, that was mentioned before in the introduction, and he was a very important person. He still is today, 5 years after he died, an important person who enlightened all of us in how to continue and proceed with conservation. And the process kept on. Actually, I will now, I think Beth will pass the word to the next speaker, because I happened to meet first Marta Subirà when she was a town councillor at her hometown of Sant Cugat near Barcelona. And at the moment she was going to become a staff member of the minister who was incoming in the Catalan government to deal with conversation. And Salvador was very interested in meeting Marta. Marta was interested in meeting Salvador. I introduced them one to another, and probably Marta will be able to continue the story from there.
Wonderful. That's a great segue to our next guest. Marta, you've noted a special connection with QLF through your study visit in New England, as well as a study visit of 2 ministers of environment.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to be part of this wonderful meeting with people that I truly appreciate and I can call friends. Thank you very much. Yes, as Jordi was telling us, he was the first person that called me even before I was appointed Director General of Environmental Policies, which was my first job in the government. And he called me because of land stewardship in Catalonia, because he was worried about the position of Salvador Grau, because they were parting the Ministry of Environment in 2, and they didn't know where land stewardship will go, if it would go to the agricultural department or if it will remain in the territorial department. So that was the first call that I received. I didn't know anything about it, and I was a little bit confused, but I talked to Salvador Grau, and his passion, his commitment to land stewardship, his joy. Well, I was absolutely amazed, and I promised him that we would keep a land stewardship in the Department of Territory, in the Ministry of Territory, and that I would do whatever I could to keep this promise, and we could keep it. And from the beginning, we started working very hard on sharing what land stewardship was with the politicians, with our minister in that time, which was Lluís Recoder, that you can see here in two photos, one with some other members of our staff, and the other one, I think it was more an institutional visit, but we made the connection with QLF and we met Brent, and it was a wonderful trip. I think for the minister, who is a conservationist, and he loves nature and everything, it was easy to convince him. And in fact, not long ago from this trip, we established the first easement from the ministry. It was Can Vilallonga. It was a public estate that in 2011 was given for 20 years to the Gavarras Consortium, which is a consortium consisting of municipal and county councils, including the Government of Catalonia, a little bit similar to the Essex County Association. And I am sure that it was because of this trip that the minister was absolutely convinced. Because as Brent has explained, the commitment and passion for work of those involved in the initial exchange between QLF and Catalonia was crucial to building a strong relationship over the years. Through all these years, Catalonia has gained a valuable experience building trust and understanding among environmental organizations, government authorities, and landowners, and also because of these trips that we did with QLF to New England in 2011 and 2014 with the ministers of environment of Catalonia. Through that, we were able to establish a stronger political commitment to incorporate innovative formulas for nature conservation. We've been able to rolling out a specific policy, new legal and administrative framework, and delivering a work plan through all these years. The truth is that this hasn't been an easy ride. You have to take into account that the tradition in Catalonia and in Europe in general is very different from that of Massachusetts. It mainly, the nature conservation, the protection of natural areas comes mainly from the government. So it took time and effort to change mindsets, both within the government and also outside with landowners and also NGOs. It's been quite a long journey to understand and to accept that nature conservation are not only the responsibility of government, but of citizens and civil society and the private sector. But at the end, the Government of Catalonia was the first regional government in Spain to obtain specific powers for promoting land stewardship in 2011. And since then, we have been implementing a work plan together with the Catalan Land Stewardship Network. We have launched a grant program every 3 years, among other actions. We've been in touch with you, with QLF, and having all the help that we need. So we are very thankful for that.
Thank you so much, Marta. And I'd like to turn this over now to Brent and then Larry to tell us what these stories mean to you in your long-term friendship and professional relationship with our guests.
Well, I think, these are all good friends that you're talking with today and will continue to be. And Zoom is an amazing device, but they're just having spent time in the field with all these folks and with the ministers, Minister Recorder in particular, we got on famously with, having those relationships, knowing them as Marta, Miquel, and Jordi, not as Secretary of the Environment and head of the largest foundation in Catalonia, and et cetera, has made it very easy and natural to continue building on, the things that got started very modestly in 1990. So it's been a joy to get to know Catalonia and the people. And just quickly to show how little I knew about Catalonia when we started, Jordi mentioned that our first correspondence was literally male, physical male going across the Atlantic. I had no idea what he looked like. So when I went to pick him up at Logan Airport, I approached the first guy that looked like he had a Mediterranean complexion, not knowing that half of the males in Catalonia are named Jordi. And I said, "Are you Jordi?" And the fellow said, "Yes." And we were putting his bags in my car by the time we worked out the fact that I had the wrong Jordi. And I went back to find this poor young guy looking around, wondering where is Brent Mitchell?
I didn't know that, Brent. That's a funny story.
Come a long way since then. Larry?
I have to say that. Sorry, Larry. Sorry. Please,
No, no.
please.
No. You're more important in terms of.
I just wanted to say that because of all these stories that we are hearing today, you can see that Brent is like the father of land stewardship in Catalonia. He's the it's true, Brent. So Jordi and Miquel are, I don't know, the uncles, but you are the father of land stewardship.
And Brent is
the
godfather.
The godfather, yes, maybe even better, the godfather of land stewardship in Catalonia, and we are very proud of you.
I would second that from the QLF Massachusetts side about how important Brent has been to so many people literally around the world. And I'm saying that do you all know the expression, the fox in the hen house? Well, I am the fox. I am surrounded here by people who inspire. So it's hard for me to vacate the area. I'm very proud to be among all of you, and I'm going to keep it at that. I'd rather listen to all of you.
Wonderful. Let's continue and have a discussion on land protection and stewardship. And I'd like to return to you, Jordi, to tell us more about the origins of the Land Stewardship Network and how important that is.
Well, yeah, definitely it was very important. When I happened to understand how the connections were running also at the Massachusetts state level, but also at US level through the Land Trust Alliance, for example, and the congresses and meetings, and how larger and smaller land trusts were working together, changing agreement processes, potential easements to be bought, lands, etc. So I definitely thought that what made sense to start thinking on stewardship in Catalonia was a network. We needed, I mean, the way I approached that, the way I thought that could work was by extending a message and involving everyone. I don't know, I mean, from what Brent was explaining at the beginning, but something that was very clear to me, and I think to most conservationists, was that when we started to have the first talks on what is this about, what is land stewardship, what is going on in New England, the eyes of the people were like growing broad when we were saying you can do conservation and you do not need to wait for government to act, because you can work with landowners, you can work with municipalities, and if we do this well, then government will help us behind. So that was the idea of how we could develop the concept of land stewardship. And of course, I mean, all connections were useful from when we started. On the right-hand side photograph, the two men with a beard. One is Brent Mitchell, clearly. The other one is Josep Maria Mallarac. He was also a former director of a natural park in Catalonia, but he also spent some time in the US and knew about land stewardship. Of course, Miquel and his boss, other foundations and organizations that had been visiting abroad. We tried to get all that people together, and we convened this first Montesquieu seminar in the year 2000. It was I think a 4-day seminar in this nice castle in the middle of Catalonia. Everybody had to stay in there. There was a hostel nearby. So we got everyone together for 4 days talking about stewardship. And I remember very well in the preparation, I don't know, Miquel, if you will, but all of a sudden Miquel said, this is so important, we have to have a manifesto, declaration, we eventually call it. And we said, yeah, that makes sense, because if we have a manifesto declaration, then after this meeting, we will be able to get more organizations joining and you know, and claiming for a network to get started. And so we did. I think that eventually we had about 60, 80 organizations of different types that supported this Montesquieu Declaration, and that was definitely a very strong point. First, for Miquel and his boss to go to the foundation and to Caixa Catalunya, who was sponsoring his foundation at the time, and say, look, we have to get some funding to get this new network going. And then it was also very useful to go and see former ministers some years before Marta, and it was not that easy at that time in the early 2000s, because there was not such a strong connection between civil society and government. But yes, eventually we also managed to get the compromise of the government to give support to that. We managed to get compromise of the University of my hometown, Vic, where the network started. Was the office of the network was and is today, after close to 20 years of existence of this network, the office is still at the university. So the network started to keep growing, and the network itself was founded in March 2003, also with 33 different organizations being funders of the network. So it was really a strong project. Today, I think that this network it's well above 150 organizations of different types. So yeah, it all happened. We knitted. It was like knitting a little bit and getting the loose ends together and
but
yeah.
you know, Jordi, that there was an important thing was that it was the civil society who started the network with a little support from the government, but that was not the government doing things as it was in the past. In the past, there was only government who was doing nature conservation all over. And then that was a change. And the second change was that it was not dealing with nature only, but also with people and with landowners and with, it was a social movement. And that was opening a lot of doors. Many people start to say, oh, this is not the classical way of doing of nature conservation, just doing campaigns or some projects, but that was only about nature without people. And that was more social movement and social, was people after all, who was doing things to care for nature.
Yeah, definitely it was. And I also remember very well when we decided, when the idea came out to say, before having the network, we said we need to exchange. And so early 2002, we started a newsletter by email in like programming in HTML, which was not very common at the time to prepare newsletters. There was a small group, a core group of people who were supporting the creation of the network, volunteers. Actually, I think Xavier Sabaté was joining us today for this meeting. He was one of the persons who helped that. We also had help and had the opportunity to present to the Catalan Parliament the concept of land stewardship. We had a meeting with a number of parliamentaries at the Parliament, and we managed to get a small also a small agreement between different political parties at government to say that that was an important piece of the future of conservation in the country. And so step by step it went growing. Yeah, definitely.
We also had this opportunity in 2008 with the IUCN World Congress in Barcelona. So we were right in the middle of the world, and we took this opportunity. And you know that we Catalans, we are very proud of our land and our culture. So it was a fantastic opportunity to show it to the rest of the world. So we organized this international seminar on private conservation, and also we promoted this declaration at the Congress on private land conservation that mentioned Brent before. And that was a good opportunity for us to have this international dimension. It's not only we, the locals, working to protect our little pieces of land around our countryside and so on, but it was something that was connecting the Catalans with the rest of the world. That has been important, and I think it's one of the characteristics that we are also with the need to keep an eye on what's happening all over the world, all the time. So that's why we love to be a bit international and to be involved in international networking and work all over.
Yes, I agree with that, because the Congress was a turning point in Catalonia in terms of nature conservation. Catalonia as a country, and also the government, not only the government of Catalonia, but also the local governments, have always had this global dimension. So taking into account that our actions, our local actions, have global impact, and we always have had this global dimension. So this part of the international relationships, it's also very, very important. And I also think that after that, the involvement of the political level increased as well, and that was important for the network, their visibility, their impact, their capacity of lobbying also in the parliament. I remember Jordi meeting with all the political parties and trying to make amendments on laws, and trying to, well, we worked very hard, for example, to recognize the land stewardship easements in the Catalan Civil Code, which was something very unique, because it's very difficult to add a new kind of contract in this kind of legal body, which is very ancient. It comes from the Roman law, and it's not easy to add something new. And we worked very, very hard with all the lawyers and people from the legal body of the government, that they didn't know anything about land stewardship. And because of the joint work that we did, all of us together, we succeed. And I am very proud of that as well.
Yeah, I think that was also important, because we discovered that the world is divided in two. The one, at least in two big pieces, the one who is following the common law, like you, the Anglo-Saxons, and the others that we are following still the Roman law. And we demonstrate that even with the Roman law, we can translate most of the work that has been done on land stewardship, the easements, the different kinds and approaches, to somehow translate it into this Roman law legislation, which is also in Latin America. It's very important, and we are developing things that can be common in in these countries, like in Chile, they are also developing these derechos reales, which is something that we can also use it in our country as well. So that was a very interesting discovery.
Yes, and we realized when visiting QLF in England that it was important to have these agreements registered in a certain way, because you have to keep to give them continuity in the time. You have to be sure that these easements are a long-term agreement, to be sure that that land is protected. So yeah, it was a very nice way of joining worlds.
Fortunately, Marta is an attorney, so that
Not a biologist.
a connection I had completely forgotten about before we looked at the pictures for this is one of the organizers, local organizers for the World Conservation Congress, Puri Canals, was on that same Scottish exchange that that Jordi was on. So
Yes,
I'd completely forgotten.
That's right. Yes, that's true.
and she also was the president of the first DEPANA organization, which I worked for at the beginning. So that's, I mean, it's a small world. Catalonia is not a huge country as the US is quite a small. So we know each other, which is quite good. We are only 7 million.
We have given Puri Canals the highest recognition from the Government of Catalonia last year. So yeah, we are very proud of her as well.
I mean, the process just got at certain point. I mean, things started to happen. It was attorneys, but we also had quite a few land registers who were involved and developing, new literature. We had notaries. We had NGOs that started to say, we want to work in marine stewardship. So we want to develop this concept in the marine areas. We want to develop this concept in rivers and wetlands. And also, there was some comment also about that. Our process was, I mean, Catalonia. We always say that Catalonia is a land in the middle of many things and many territories. Catalonia was the point. Also with quite a lot of involvement from the very beginning from the Balearic Islands. That has to be said, especially Menorca. Actually, in the meeting in the exchange in 2005, we had also representatives from the government of the small island of Menorca in the middle of the Mediterranean. But after that, land stewardship started to extend in other parts of Spain. New networks started to emerge. The Spanish government, through a foundation, developed a platform a learning platform on land stewardship that is still going on today. And then from there, as Brent was saying, with the manual that you participated in producing in 2013, that's when we said, and now Brussels, now the European Commission, we have to tell the DG Environment, DG Agriculture at the European Commission that this is happening. And so we did. And it continues today. I'm not so closely involved. Miquel is much more through the present European organizations. But in a way, Catalonia, and also, of course, the countries in Central Europe, Lombardy, for example, in Italy, Germany, from the land care organizations, we managed to get together this message and jointly developed a concept that today in Europe you can say land stewardship in conservation scenes, and people know what we talk about, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we were the starting point for developing this land stewardship in Spain, but then we also were quite crucial to start in Europe, the work in Europe, and that was actually 6 years ago in Berlin, where this first Congress of ILCN took place. And we were, Marta was there, and as many others. And that's where the European Land Conservation Network also started. And we are very proud. And we are still working through Eurosite, which is the network who is sponsoring and promoting also the land stewardship all over Europe now. And I'm proud to be also a member of the board there. And so we are following this work. We can say it's a pioneer work that we were also helping to shape. And we are still in that process. And hopefully in December this year, we are going to have the International ILCN Congress in Barcelona as well again. It had to be last year, but it was in March, so everything exploded by the pandemic. So hopefully we will have it in December this year. So you are, of course, all of you are invited.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. And I have another question I'd like to ask Marta, and everyone else can comment on that, but it's the important role of public-private partnerships in your work.
Well, I think, as I said before, that at the beginning, not everybody in the government was very much convinced of this partnership, because they thought that nature conservation was something that belonged to the government, who is the one that has the power to protect land in a certain way. But then, as I think that Miquel has pointed out very, very well, they understood, and we all of us understood, that there is another way of doing things, and that working with people is so important, because nowadays it's not possible to impose a protected area without the agreement and the commitment of people who live there, because it doesn't work well. So I think that this kind of public-private partnerships were absolutely key to make a lot of people understand that there is another way of doing things, that these kind of agreements can be as important as the law. And it's a very good way of promoting nature conservation. I think that local politicians that sometimes are against this kind of imposition from the government saw that this was a good way of protecting their local areas by working very, very closely with the landowners, and it was easier, and it was more, well, it has a bigger rating of approval from the citizens, and also working with NGOs, which is something that maybe some years ago was not as popular as now. As I have been telling you in these recent meetings, I've seen some conversions of mayors, for example, that were not very they didn't like very much everything related to nature conservation. And when they saw the huge amount of work that a certain environmental organization was doing with landowners in their hometown, for example, in his hometown, so they understood perfectly well. Because sometimes with the Roman law, it's not so easy to understand what land stewardship is. So field trips are very important. And during all these years, we've been doing field trips, not only with politicians from the government, but also from the local government, also with people from private companies, and even civil servants, technicians. For example, I remember the ones that have to give the grants. So the ones from the economic department, sometimes they didn't understand. So what kind of grant are you talking about? Grant to promote land stewardship? What is this? It's not the usual things that we do from the government. So we decided to organize this field trip to visit different experiences of land stewardship in Catalonia. And it was a revelation for them. So they wanted to quit their jobs and start doing land stewardship. Yeah.
And
It was
Marta
like,
is
it was very,
not
very
only visiting and like a tourist or just
no.
for sightseeing, but also doing some volunteer work
Yes, we did it as well.
in these areas, which is very good. I mean, the volunteer work is something that we are using all over, and it's very, very good to put in board local people, elder people, young people, or sometimes professionals who has no connection with nature. And for a few hours, they realize that it's how beautiful it is to plant a tree or to cut a tree or to do some volunteer work.
Yes, I
It's
remember
very, very nice.
people from the road planning department, they were like, what am I doing? Road planning in an office instead of being in the middle of nature, like working on improving a river basin or whatever. So yeah, that was very important, and for them to talk to the landowners and to realize that landowners were very, very happy with the agreements, with the work of the NGOs. So yeah, I think to put your feet on the floor in this case, I don't know the right expression, but to be there and to be able to talk with the people involved, with people that work in land stewardship is very important to succeed.
Thank you so much.
You remind me, just very rapidly, you remind me very much of a message that we got from colleagues from Chile in one of the congresses we had over these years in the south of Spain. Brent was there, if he remembers. They were saying, they were joining two words, conversation and conservation. So this is what we are talking about. Getting people to have conversations for conservation, it's what it makes land and nature stewardship grow so much.
Thank you so much. And one final question for our guests here today, and why don't I start with you, Miquel? In a world defined by global pandemics and climate change, what role can the land conservation community play, and what hope can we offer?
Well, I think the people has suffered a lot during this year of pandemic. But I think nature has provided probably one of the most important assets that we have around. And to be in contact with nature, the people has rediscovered that this is one of the most important things to have, to value, to have, and to care for this nature around us. And we also, I think we also have the feeling that we need to be part of something larger. So if we don't join forces, we do networking and try to be part of the solution in the world, but starting from home. So from local to global, to be working as close as you are to your nature around, the close nature to cities, to villages. You can do a transformation of your place, but you are also connected to the rest of the world, and you are part of this fight to have a better planet for our children, because at the end, this is what it's all about, and that's what we are fighting for.
Yes, for sure. And Jordi?
Well, I will take it to where I'm part of the work that I'm doing right now. Right now, I'm involved in the European chapter of the Society for Ecological Restoration. So I think that very much connected to what Miquel says. We are in a moment in life in this planet where conservation must continue, and restoration of ecosystems and healing of the people in these ecosystems, in these landscapes, has also to be a very important element. And of course, I've spent most of my life networking for one reason or another. So I obviously think that that this work from local to global that Miquel says, but networking and joining people, joining groups, joining ideas, exchanging, that is the way. Yeah.
Sure. And Branton, any comments on this question?
Well, I think just for me, remembering all of this time, and Larry won't remember the strategic planning session where QLF decided to work in Catalonia, because it didn't happen. There was a seed that got planted and it took root, and we just continued to nurture it because it was happening. And if that can happen once, it can happen lots of other times, and we just have to continue over time to do that, and we will.
Yes, and Larry.
Well, I'll be quick. 3 words come to mind. Community. Miquel started the conversation. Jordi, Marta, Brent all picked it up. People. And that's where QLF comes from. The next word, networks. I lost a friend yesterday. Finest networker I know, supported QLF because I was his classmate. And I think of us, an organization that is so much dependent on and tries to contribute to networks. The third word was demonstrated today in the individuals, my colleagues here, leadership. Without that, we won't have any success at all. And we need leaders like those that I am participating with today if we're going to make something happen. It starts at QLF with Brent Mitchell. It extends around the world, and certainly today to Catalonia. And I think that's where QLF enters this. We were described once as a pioneer in community-based conservation. Nature, people brought together for common good and for progress. That's post-pandemic talk.
Thank you. And Marta.
Yes, I agree with all of you. The challenges that we are facing are enormous. In terms of biodiversity, current indicators and trends continue to show loss of biodiversity in Catalonia and globally, and the need to provide better and stronger guarantees for the provision of ecosystem services. And during all this year, we've seen that people need to be in contact with nature. And I think this is a huge opportunity to remind everybody of the importance of protecting the environment. We have enjoyed quieter cities, less pollution, the singing of birds. Most of us didn't know they existed, those that we are not biologists. And this is something we cannot take it for granted. This is so valuable. So I think there has to be no going back from this. And in Catalonia and with land stewardship, of course, it has proven to be a successful strategy for nature conservation and will definitely continue to be. And I am thrilled at the prospect of continuing to strengthen our most valued relationship and continuing to learn from you. So thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. And thanks to everyone for joining with us today, and a special nod to our guests. And I hope we return for the next episode on Thursday, April 8th. We'll return to our home region. Our guests are QLF alumni, some of the first volunteers assigned to many of the rural communities on the Quebec North Shore along the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Once again, thank you for being with us today. Be well. Take care.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
See you in Barcelona.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yes.
See you soon.